was freezing and only got colder going down. What was easy to spot, but hard to look at. Bertrand had bled her dry and filled her up again with God knows what. Getting the restraints off, that was easy. Nothing 20,000 volts couldn't handle. But walking away, I don't know. I got the feeling maybe I'd overdone it a little.
From a narrative standpoint, I think we really believe that, especially the genre, it's really important to have a narrative that is sort of kind of epic in the scope of what you're trying to do, whether it's saving a city or, it can't just be, about the story of a drama of a lover's quarrel. It has to be epic in order to work. And I think we felt like as storytellers, we really needed to meet that in terms of the way modern superhero movies are presented. We needed big moments, we needed drama, and we needed to go do the detail work of raising the bar of our cutscene presentation. The whole game is shot on a mocap stage in San Diego, which is very new for us, but it really brings those characters to life, and I think it's one of the most profound changes to the experience is just how much more these characters feel alive.
Possible choices.
Together, we can save these people. Together, we own this town.
Also, a goal for Infamous 2 was trying to get a more visceral feel to the whole game, pulling the player more into the game through more emotion. And so for the character development, this time we tried to work in 3D cinematics, which necessitated that we went in and we basically had to redo all character work. In this code being Cole and Zeke carrying over from the first game. Also, we needed to create a whole new face rig for the characters to actually be able to emote and to do lip syncing in the cutscenes. We actually worked a lot on camera work this time to make it more interesting and more impactful for the player.
I think one of the most straightforward things that we knew we wanted to do with Infamous 2 was introduce bigger things. And really, at the end of Infamous 1, you are a superhero. You have really, really powerful powers. And so, how can we up the ante from there? We didn't want to nerf people. We didn't want to bring people down to, oh, now you can only run and jump and shoot your R1 again. So we had to have another level that we took people to. And I really think Ionic powers is where we took that level to. And so developing them was really interesting. We started off with just, I believe Ionic Vortex was the first one that we created. It was just a really satisfying power. It kind of gave us the blueprint of what kind of a scale we could bring these powers to, really. And so after that, we had to think of, well, why don't people just use Ionic Vortex all the time? And of course, we had to think through the things of essentially resource management, all the little details of that, but we knew that we really just had to get those details right because having those huge powers really sold that fact that we were playing Infamous 2 rather than Infamous 1 really, really well.
We certainly are continuing the story. Cole's journey that was sort of started in Infamous 1 does absolutely continue. The beast that he gets a glimpse of in the end of Infamous 1 is kind of the driving force behind Infamous 2. He's got to prepare himself to battle the beast. He actually faces the beast very early and is defeated, escapes to New Marais, and is really trying to amp up his powers and his abilities so that he's ready when, of course, the beast is trailing him and is going to come. And so how is he going to deal with that? That's the driving narrative of the game. The way that user-generated content is integrated into the game is that it's seeded directly into New Marais. As you're playing the game, any missions that we've featured will be ready there to start. Now we make them green. They have these green mission starts so that you can tell the difference between the mainline missions that we've created and user-generated missions because we want people to understand the difference. But the idea of having the mission starts just right in the game was actually kind of inspired by the problems that I think you have when there's lots and lots of content and users have to sift through it. So you might think of situations like the App Store or even, anytime you're dealing with a list of new missions, it's kind of hard to see a list of 5 or 10 things. but we have this entire city, so we can sprinkle them and you can kind of just discover them. And it's kind of it was sort of philosophically an answer to how do we just not have the 10 most popular missions list? How do we use the breadth of the city to kind of let you explore around and find missions that might be fun for you? So I think as much as anything, we just wanted to avoid a list of the top 10 missions.
The gameplay that we've added to Infamous 2 that we're really proud of, I think Melee is one of the things that people are going to really like. There's a big controversy inside of our studio actually when we talked about doing it. You know, a lot of us are come out of a real superhero fanboy background, and most superheroes, not all superheroes, but most superheroes, their powers come from them. They're not about weapons or equipment. So there are superheroes that are about weapons and equipment, but most of them, it's about the superheroes themselves. And for a lot of people at the studio, it's heresy to think that Cole was going to have some bit of equipment that he used, that it wasn't just electricity flowing through his body. But we thought there was something there. There was a possibility there that we could add something to Cole that really became part of the Cole character and was much more impactful to the player. There was something that you could do that would really make Cole feel like he was hurting something. In a way that you don't really get if you're shooting sparks at people. The thing that actually had a surprising impact for me was adding these really well-directed, well-acted, well-shot cutscenes to the game. I'm a gameplay guy from way back, right? So I think gameplay is the only thing that's important about the game, and so I was like, oh yeah, we're going to do these cutscenes. It'll make the game cooler, But when I actually saw them in the game and saw how the gameplay flowed into these and how the cutscenes flowed back into the gameplay, it really made the game a deeper experience for me when I was playing it. I had much more of a feeling of immersion in the world and more of a feeling of involvement with the characters. It changed the game for me, really. It made it more of an investment. I felt more invested in what was going on than I did in Infamous 1, where I'm sure I had a great time playing the game, but I cared more this time. And I think that's because of all the work we did to have these really pretty well done cutscenes kind of just flowing into and out of the gameplay. How did we keep the narrative and integrated with the gameplay? It's an interesting question. It's hard, right? Because as you're developing the game, you're trying a bunch of stuff, and you're finding out that some stuff works great and some stuff doesn't work so good. And you have to be careful about how that ties into the story. And so it was pretty holistic. As we were developing the game, we were figuring out what sorts of things you're going to do. We're developing the story in parallel to that so that the two reinforce each other. During Infamous 2, you end up fighting some really, really big characters, some real, epic boss characters. And we really needed to understand how those boss characters work in combat. What was your actual gameplay experience when you were fighting these characters, before we could figure out exactly the details of how they fit into the story, how they fit into the narrative. They had to really reinforce each other. You couldn't have the story building to a big conclusion, big epic, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next, and then have the gameplay not be at that level of excitement. So they really kind of need to work together. We started off with a couple goals. One was to take everything that people really liked about Infamous 1 and make sure that we improved on it, that we took the combat that people liked, the parkour and moving through the city that people liked, the karma elements, and we really built upon those. We call those the pillars of the game, and we wanted to make sure that we weren't just adding new stuff, we were taking the stuff that people liked and making it better. On top of that, we took some things that we thought were really missing from the Infamous 1 experience, a really impactful, violent melee experience, and adding those things as well. So it's a mix of the two, making the stuff that was there better and adding some exciting new stuff as well. So one of the things that veteran Infamous players will find very different about this game is the way powers work. In the last game, you kind of had a fixed set of powers. They got better, they upgraded over the course of the game, but you really had just a power that was assigned to the R1 button or to the X button. In this game, we really wanted to go beyond that. We wanted to have more variety in the powers you had. We wanted to give you, as a player, more opportunity to make tactical decisions about how you're going to deploy these powers. We wanted there to be interesting combinations of powers. So for that to happen, we went to a little bit more complicated model where you really can have a bunch of different powers assigned to R1 and you switch them on the fly. And what that means is that there are all kinds of combinations that you get where you can use the new melee powers, and you might decide that you're going to combo that up with some other stuff. You're going to use a specific blast power to get you close enough to guys to melee them. Some of the things we let you do let you kind of impair people's ability to perceive you. You can use that to sneak up on people or to get past people. So there are all kinds of things you can do this time around that you couldn't do last time around in terms of being clever and how you're using your power set, because there's a lot more variety in the powers. The parkour system in Infamous 1 we liked. It was super fun. It was a very different experience for people to have this very athletic, graceful movement wherever you wanted to in a sprawling open world game. You know, it's not something you get typically. But we wanted it to get better in Infamous 2. So we looked at it as a couple different areas to solve. First of all, we wanted the experience of scaling buildings to be faster and smoother and better looking. So we did a lot of polish work there. Stuff that you may not notice directly when you're playing Infamous 2. If you play it back to back with Infamous 1, you'll say, gosh, this is a lot better. But it's not something that's going to leap out at you, except for things like the electric poles that shoot you up in the air to get you up fast. That's going to be obvious. We also worked a lot on the horizontal parkour. You know, you're on a flat surface and you're just moving along. Getting you on and off of stuff automatically and quickly. In Infamous 1, sometimes you ended up doing a little bit of jump grab. You'd fall into things you weren't supposed to fall onto and get stuck on them. That doesn't happen in Infamous 2. It's super easy to get onto and off of stuff. And I think the net effect is pretty good. I mean, I think people that like the parkour system in Infamous 1 are going to feel like, yeah, it's still there. You still get that feeling of freedom, the feeling of grace. That hasn't changed. What's changed is that a lot of the frustrations are gone this time, and Cole looks better and moves more smoothly. Infamous 2 is going to be available on PlayStation 3 on June 7th.